G'day guys, Todd from Toxic Garage Customs, and you are in the Toxic Garage Custom workshop. What we've got at the moment is mess and stuff everywhere, and what that is a sign of lots of work getting done on lots of different things. We've got the compressor going in the background, we've got Sam up there on the sand blaster, blasting the hinges for Clive the GMC, but that's not what this video is about. And having said that, there's a little bit about Clive the GMC in this video. But what we do is we build some lowering blocks for Doris the Datsun. We also do as promised, and we put the wheels on Doris, and you can just catch a glimpse of them there. You'll have to go to the end to see what they look like. But at this point in time, I also just want to give a quick shout out to all of our friends up in Queensland and northern New South Wales. Cyclone Alfred luckily decategorised a bit and didn't come through as badly as was expected, but there's been a fair bit of destruction, damage up there. There's been a lot of flooding, and there's still more to come from what I can understand. So my thoughts are with you, and I'm sure other people watching, their thoughts are with you as well. So just know that while there's not much we can do, we are thinking of you. So stay safe, please. If you get the time, while you're sitting at Macca's using their free Wi-Fi, watch the video about Doris and have a look at the wheels that are hidden by my shoulders at the moment, and go through and have a check anyway. So there's Sam wandering through the background. I'll see you at the end of the video, but in the meantime, why don't you hit that subscribe button? Why don't you send me a comment at the end about Doris, and also share this with a Datsun lover. But in the meantime, grab yourself a cold adult beverage or a coffee, put your feet up, get a foot massage, and enjoy the next about an hour of me doing what I do. I'll see you at the end. I think I might change pace a little bit. So I'm going to do what is probably the least important thing to do on this Datsun at the moment, because I feel like doing something a little different. So what I'm going to do is take Audrey, the XM, and park her in the driveway, and I'm going to clean up underneath the bottom of Doris the Datsun in preparation for paint. Now, the things I know need doing on this, pretty sure the diff needs some work because it's got more wine in it than a bottle shop. The rest of this floor is incredibly good. Like, the underside of this car is just incredibly good condition, so that's great. I suspect the front end will need some work. I've never checked it, but I'm pretty sure there's some wobbliness in it. I know I need some brake work, which I've mentioned just a little while ago. So what I'm going to do is totally irrelevant, totally unimportant. I think I'm going to go through, take Audrey out, and give Doris a really good clean up underneath in preparation for some black paint. Now, I'll probably just use some cheap black paint. I've got something in the cupboard actually. I've got a couple of things, but I know that I've got that factory pack rapid dry enamel satin black. Absolutely perfect. Cheap black paint for the underside of the car. Pretty sure I've got something else in there as well, but that'll do. So what we'll do is give underside a super good clean up, pressure wash, degreased. That'll be about as good as it gets actually. And then I'll mask off anything that I really don't want to cover in paint, which is not going to be terribly much. And I'll mask off around the perimeter so that I don't get paint on the fresh new yellow paint, but also so I don't get any overspray drifting up. And I'll take the wheels off to do this as well. And we'll make it look pretty underneath. As I said, it's not important. I want to do it eventually, and there's probably other things I could be doing, but this is probably what I'm capable of at the moment, is the best way I can put it. Capable of physically with my hand, and also I just need something a little more different to cleaning engines at the moment. So let's do that. I have mentioned before that I want to lower this. Well, I'm going to lower this. Now obviously the suspension's at full droop at the moment, but the thing rides really high. So I've worked out a way for the back, I think. The front I'm still playing around with. So the back is traditional. I'm going to be putting lowering blocks in it, which I'm not going to buy, I'm going to make. And I'll show you how I'm going to do that. And the front, if I haven't shown you before, if you haven't seen before, this has got a transverse leaf spring. So rather than coil springs or struts or anything like that, or any of your traditional setups or even torsion bars, it has a transverse leaf spring, a bit like I think a Model A, Model T Ford, that sort of stuff had that setup. So, but it's still got independent wishbones. So the only way I can really see that I could easily lower this is to maybe take out one or two of the leaves and just make it sit lower. So I'll have a play around with that, because I've never had to experience anything like that before as far as what to do. I know on some cars you can put drop spindles and just push the whole hub assembly up through changing the offsets, the geometry and stuff. But I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be able to find anything like that for a 1968 Datsun 1000. At the back here, this is a like just a live axle, so normal diff setup with your U-shackles and then the bottom plate. So what I'm going to do is put longer U-shackles in it and put lowering blocks. So I'll put lowering blocks in here, and I'll just make those out of some steel, some box section steel, rectangular I would say. But what I've done, because again I haven't been able to go online and find lowering kits for Datsun 1000s, I got these. These are 50, I measured the axle up and I think it was 51 mil. Got these, and these are 51 mil, and they're for trailers. Now the reality is they're the same size as this. They're for a trailer. A trailer, quite frankly, probably weighs more and carries more than a Datsun 1000, and realistically a trailer probably has more power than a Datsun 1000, which is saying something. So the idea is, these are the longest ones I could find at the time. So I think the existing U-bolts there are 135 mil long. These ones are 175 mil. So I'll be able to get about 40 mil of drop out of it, and that'll be enough. I don't want it to be like a low rider or anything like that. I just want it to be lower. So they fit. There's a brake pipe stopping it at the moment, but they fit perfectly. So I'm going to, after I clean all this up, I'll rat-a-tat these down. I'll have a look, see what I've got in my steel over here, and I'm pretty sure I should have something. I only need two pieces that are maybe 100 mil long at most, and I think I need to measure it, but they're probably about 50 mil wide. So this stuff here, for example, might be okay. Might be a bit tall. Doesn't need to be overly ridiculously strong, but obviously it needs to be strong enough to do the job. So I'll rat through there, and if I can't find anything, then I'll go to plan B, which I don't know what that is, but I'll go to plan B. Surely I've got something floating around somewhere. That stuff. That's 75 mil by 50 mil. That's solid. That's actually what I make the frames out of for my cab rebodies and so on. I'll find something. Okay, let's clean this thing. Okay, the degreaser should have done its job, so let's start pressure wash on this thing. Well, quite a bit of time later, and I have pressure washed the absolute living life out of this thing underneath. I'm still going to do a bit more because the diff is getting there. But have a look at this. I've actually hosed this floor off twice. This car was clean underneath, if you remember. I've hosed this floor off twice, and this is what I've got there. There's junk everywhere. But mainly the front end, it was pretty crusty under here. So there's still a bit of stuff, and I'm pretty sure that I've probably destroyed some of the ball joint and tie rod end rubbers, but that's okay. They'll probably all got to be replaced anyway, like the whole thing rather than just the rubber. But you can see it looks a lot different than what it did, and spotlessly clean is probably the best way I could describe most of it. The diff, I still need to go over again. Again, I've got to do work on it. I'll probably get my mate Lang, who's a diff rebuilder, to do that for me, but I want to hand it to him clean when that time comes. If 9 inches is the standard, I reckon this thing's about a 3-inch diff. So yeah, I'll give that another blast. As I said, I'll sort out the lowering and all that sort of stuff, and then once I've done that, then I'll probably rip it out and send it off to him at some stage. And yeah, no surprises. Haven't blasted any of my own paint off. Hopefully I haven't flooded inside the car. There's not really any spots that I can see where it could get in. I flooded the garage, and when I open that door, no doubt there'll be all water in there, but that's okay. I did cover my hoist motor because that was getting wet. But generally speaking, other than the fact that the Commodore's getting all covered in stuff, and but that's only epoxy that it's in anyway, and my sandblast, which I'd prefer not to get wet. I don't really care about anything else getting wet. That's sort of what this space is for. So it's still a bit dirty up here, like crap that's gone on it. But what I'm going to do is I'll soak the diff. I might just chuck a little bit more around here, or I could just say, just live with it, Todd. And then I'm going to lower it down so I can get on top of the control arms a bit, and also so I can get into the engine bay a bit better. But I'm very happy with the way it's coming up. Very happy. Onto the engine bay, making a fine mess of everything. But there was all this stuff here that was all sort of bubbly. Someone had painted it with a brush or something. You can see the lines down here, maybe. I don't know, it's like had brake fluid spilled on it or something at some point in time. Blasting all that off. As I've said before, I'm going to paint the engine bay. My personality doesn't allow me not to. So just giving this a super blast. There's a couple of spots where water could get into the cab, so I'm just taking care, but water will get into the cab. Yeah, giving it a really good blast. It's coming up miraculously well. That's a good word, isn't it? Miraculous. Don't know if it's the right word, but anyway. So yeah, I'll give that a blast. I'll go under, I'll do the diff one more time. It's soaking. I did the control arms. They've come up pretty good under there. And then I think we'll call that clean enough for the next stage. Well, I think I might drop this shackle, might drop it on both sides. So undo this so I can lift the diff up. So I can maybe pop in one of these in place. The problem is I only bought 2 of them. I wasn't thinking I need 4 of them, and for some reason I only bought 2, but that's okay. So I'll pop them in place, and then what I'm really trying to do is just have a look, see what size my lowering blocks need to be. So how wide, how long, and how deep they can be after I've got the actual U-bolts in place. Now, as I said, I think it'll be about 40 mil, but I might, looking at the threads here, I might get 50 mil out of it if I'm lucky, which would be nice, since that is a size that is available. Actually, it looks like this bump stop just gets held in place with the shackles. I'm not sure it's welded. Okay, so we'll rattle these off, and all those should really need to do, I might need to undo the shocks as well, just so I can lift the diff up. Lift it up, I'll prop it up on something so I can have a look. Well, that was easy enough to undo. I did have a surprise though when I was undoing the plate for the shackles here. The bottom leaf spring and this plate, it's like a solid lump of metal here, and the actual plate, that all fell down. So I thought, no, that's unusual that the spring wasn't held in, and then I was looking thinking, well, it's not actually secured here and it's not secured on the other end either, so maybe it's just sitting there, which seemed unusual. But then when I went to take this side off, this side didn't fall off. So what I think is that the locating pin that goes down through the middle of the spring, well, I think it is snapped off at the bottom of that, where it comes into here, comes into that spring, and that's the rest of it just there. So I'll have to get one of those, pop that in there and hold it together. Doesn't appear that it's been moving around or anything, but so I guess the U-bolts have been holding it, but now that I know, I can't unknow, so I'll be replacing that. So what I'm trying to do at the moment, I was hoping that my acro prop just there, that I would be able to put one on each side and hold the diff up, but the problem is they're too tall. So I won't be doing that. So I'm just going to try and get the diff to stay up somehow so I can get in there with a ruler and just measure the size of this. And then what I'll need to do is, when I make my lowering blocks, is I'll need to duplicate essentially, where are they going? Got to go between there and there. So I've got to duplicate the bottom of that really on the bottom of my block, so that, and then I'll put a pin on the top. So what I need is, if you see just there on this plate here, so I can slip those out. There's a hole, it looks like it's about 20 mil, a lump. I need to create a hole in the bottom of my lowering block so it locates. Let me take it out and I'll show you. And this is it, taken out. So this is that plate. It was sitting on top of the spring, and then on top of the spring, yeah, and then the leaf spring. Sorry, the actual diff housing sits on top of that. So that thing there, what I need to do is, when I make my lowering block, which will be the same length as this and as close to the same width as that as I can get, when I make it, I've got to cut a hole in exactly that spot that will be whatever that diameter there is. Looks like it's probably about 30 mil or something. So from outside to outside, probably about 35 mil by the time I go from there to there. So that when I have my block, it sits on top of this part, and that hole helps to locate it in place so that it can't move. And then on the top of it, then I will need to do something along the same lines of this, reproduce that. Maybe I can weld some washers there or something like that to create a lump, essentially, that will sit into the bottom of the diff block just there. So if you can see, it's a bit hard for me to lift it up, but up here, that's where that originally located. So my block will sit in this space here. The bottom of it will sit on top of that, and the top of it will go into that. So I need to create a hole in the bottom and a lump in the top. So first things first, let's work out what size it needs to be. Righto, what I need is something that is about 98 millimeters long. That I'm measuring from the bottom of that little speed bump just there. So it's probably about 98 mil. So somewhere between 95 and 98 will be okay. And it needs to be about 50 mil wide, 55. I'm going to run with 50 because I know that's the size of steel. So, and then I need something that is about 40 or 50 mil thick based on my shackles. And those shackles, what I did realise also is that these are actually thicker than the original ones, so I'll have to enlarge the holes that they go through. So the holes on here and the holes on here, they'll just need to be enlarged by a couple of mil, which is fine, means they're stronger. So as you can see, they're not going to fit through there at the moment. Close, but no cigar. So extra 40mm to play with. And as we saw in the first place, the nuts still had about 10mm left, so I might be able to get away with 50, but 40 at least. So I need 100mm long, 98mm long, 50mm wide, 40 to 50mm thick. Let's see what I've got. Well, this is the best I can find at the moment. It's 50mm by 50mm, and I think it'll be fine. But I'm not really all that thrilled with the thickness of the wall. It's only 2mm wall, so I'd prefer more like 4mm wall. So what I'm going to do is I'll make out of this, and one of two things will happen. I'll either reinforce this on the sides with some flat bar or something just to make it thicker, or I will just use this as a proof of concept and then make the right ones for it later. But this is long enough, so this is 270, I need about 200mm. So the idea is I'm going to cut it and start putting it there. So it's not going to be welded to it or anything, it'll just be sitting there. So I will box the ends of it in, and I'll leave the corners open on the bottom so moisture can get out. But what I mean by reinforcing it, if I need to, I can run some flat bar down each side, and there is enough width through here to allow me to do that. It is 50mm tall, and as I said, that'll be about the maximum I can get. So in the first place, if I just do proof of concept, see if I can actually use this thickness. Otherwise I might have to go down the path of like completely fabricating it, because there's only particular sizes you can get in hollow square or rectangular section. So I'll work with what I can at the moment, and we will take it from there. Okay, so this is where we're at with our lowering block. So far, I got some 50 by 50 square hollow section, 2mm wall, which is not thick enough for my liking. Proof of concept at the moment. So this sits on top of the spring pack, and then normally the leaf spring sits on top of that. So the leaf spring has a hole, sorry, not the leaf spring, the diff sits on top of that. So the plate on the diff has a hole this size, and so that goes up into the diff normally. So I'm putting this between the spring pack and the diff. So I've put a hole in this that mimics the hole that goes in the diff plate. So that sits there. So that sits nicely. And then what I'm going to do, I've found these washers, and these washers I think are exactly the right size to mimic this. Now obviously the hole is smaller, so if I need to have a look. I don't think it matters, but if I need to, I can enlarge that hole. But what we have, that is pretty much bang on the same diameter. It's about 30mm, or these are 30mm. This is about 30mm at the top and about 32 at the flare on the bottom. And then when I put two of them together, they are almost exactly the same thickness as that raised bit. So I figure if I have that there and then put 2 of those there in exactly the spot where they're supposed to be, so I'll weld them together and then I will weld them onto here, and I'll cut a hole through there in the first place, and then as far as that goes it should be okay, and then it's just a matter of strengthening it on the bottom, on the ends. So let's get that done. To explain better, this is the plate on the bottom of the diff, and that is the hole where that where those 2 washers need to go, where that lump is on top of that other plate. So if I show you on this side, I can't show you on that side. So yeah, I've got one of the washers sitting in there, fits absolutely perfectly. So I'll weld 2 together and then they will locate in that spot the same as that lump did previously. So it goes in there. Okay. Okay, for the moment, this is what we have. We have this thing here. So I'm going to pop it in one side of the car. Hopefully it'll work just doing it in one side at the moment. Just make sure that the principle is working. And if it is, then we will continue on. But that can't move anywhere. That shouldn't be able to move anywhere. U-shackle should hold it in place. Obviously it's not finished. Okay, so I've got that block sitting in there. It sits exactly as it should, so I'm happy with that. I have no issues with the way it's sitting. It's on a lean at the moment because I haven't got a block in on this side. So I'm happy with the way it's sitting. It's sitting into the diff properly and it's sitting on top of that lump properly. And then I've just got one U-bolt down through there, and that shouldn't be any issue, obviously. So I've just got to enlarge the holes in this, as I said, and then this plate here, it will go in like that. It's going to be a bit hard for me to get it to seat completely using just one hand, but it goes like that. That gap is much smaller. So I'm hoping that it is going to have enough thread to be able to get the nuts on, a spring washer, and 1 or 2 threads after that. And if I can get that, then I'll be happy. Anything less than that I'll be a little less happy with. And if that is what happens, then I may have to reconsider how high that block is. It might have to come down 5 or 10 mil, which I guess involves cutting it in half, welding it back together, and then plating it on the side. So it's just more work, but it's all possible. So I'm going to make another one, exactly the same as that one, so I can sit it in this side, so I can just start checking it out a bit more. One thing I have noticed is the internal diameter of this is about 1 or 2 mil less than in the original one, which it fits over the axle tube absolutely perfectly. But the bump stop, it's a little bit funky with that. I may need to just create a little relief on either end there. I don't think it's the top, I think it's just on the edges there. That's a pretty small issue in the big scheme of things. So I think, go ahead, make another one. Okay, 7 cold chisel songs later, and this is where we're up to. So got that one sitting there, that's the one I just made. That's the one from before. So make one, make the second one exactly the same. Second one is always faster. The prototype's the slow one. I'm happy with that. Looking at these, as I said, I think they're going to be long enough. And so I'm going to continue along, and I'm actually going to run with these ones. 2 things I'm going to do. I'm going to box the ends of them in, like I said, to give it some strength, and I'm going to put some plate down one side in the first place, probably both sides. The reason being, just so that when these run down through their holes, I'd like it so that the gap is as minimal as possible so that it can't move. Doesn't necessarily need to be right up against it, but as close as possible so that nothing can go sideways. And I'm pretty confident that that is going to be strong enough for the purpose. Now, if you have a look in here, get some light. Okay, so just inside, that's a bit hard to film. You can see where that lug comes up through the middle of that. Very hard to film, in fact. Let's try from this side. That's better. Okay, so yeah, so that's the lug coming up through the bottom, nice and tight, and you can't see the one up the top, but it's in there. So the things I'm going to do now is that strengthening, but I'm also going to drill the holes through, this plate's just sitting there, but enlarge those holes so that these can fit through. Once I've done that, then this thing's lowered. I've got to play around with those bump stops. Pretty easy job so far. I'm just boxing in the end, so I've already done the other side. I've just prepared this one, so I've got a really good wide gap there. It's probably about 1.5 mil around, so that I can get some good penetration in there. Of course the compressor's got to turn on. And I'm grinding it. I'm not going to grind it completely flat, but I'm grinding it somewhat neat. So I need to make sure there's plenty of metal in there before I do that. What I'm doing is just the leftover piece of the end of what I made that out of. I've just cut it into some pieces, cleaning the edges up, just sort of chamfering the edge a bit. So yeah, just using that and welding it in. Okie dokie. Well, got those welded up. Ran out of gas right at the very end, which was a bit annoying, but I got them done. So there they are, boxes with ends on them, little holes on the bottom to allow moisture to come out. Got them in some enamel primer, just aerosol stuff. And I got those reinforcing plates on each side as well. So they're looking pretty good. So tomorrow, it's about 11 o'clock at night now. Tomorrow I'm going to give these a sandblast and I'll enlarge those holes like I said, and I'll give it all a bit of a clean up. And then I will start putting this all back together, except for the fact that I forgot that I've only got 2 of those U-bolts. So I'll put it together with 2 and I don't know, I'll work something out. Then I'll order some more. But I'm going to call that a wrap for today. It's a bit of a all over the place video, this one, but it's all to do with the Datsun at least. So we'll see. Sometime very soon, maybe this video, maybe not, I will get some paint underneath that as well. I'll do the black first and then I'll worry about the engine bay second, because it'll be a bit of a bigger job. Looking forward to seeing that, because once I've got this stuff done and that stuff under there done, and then the yellow stuff under there, I can put the shiny new things on here, because I've never seen them on there and I think they're going to look good. So hopefully we can make some more progress tomorrow. Just having a look at this broken stud that retains the leaf springs. So this is how it goes together. The other leaf springs go through there. I'm not really sure exactly what this block does. It's probably just to firm up the whole system. But this part here is the part that was snapped on the right-hand side. So luckily I was able to get the whole thing apart pretty well. And that part there is the part that was in there. So that's what the whole thing looks like. It's actually essentially a bolt, head, shaft, nut and washer. I'm not sure if these are sleeves or if they are actually part of the bolt itself. But what I am going to do, so whether they're machined down, what I am going to do is I'm going to reproduce this with a high tensile bolt. I've already started, so I got this bolt. I had to put more threads in it because the threads weren't long enough, so I just tapped or cut some threads there, and I'll have to cut the end of the bolt off. It's the same diameter as this, so I'll cut it to about that length there, roughly. And what I need to do is make up these little sleeves. Now I've got a lathe, and I've just spent about half an hour frustrating myself with the fact that it's useless. So I'm going to go old school. So I've got this piece of round bar, round stock. I'm going to neatly square off the edge of it, or the end of it. And then I'm going to attempt, I'll probably cut a piece about this long, then I'm going to attempt to put that in my drill press and drill a hole the same diameter as that bolt, which I think is 8mm, same diameter as that through the middle of this. And then I'll cut it into two pieces like that and should have the thing ready to go. That's the theory. Just depends how well I can drill through the middle of this. So that's my next challenge. In the meantime, I have given these a quick sandblast up. I'm giving my compressor a break. It sort of gets a bit stressed out if I use it too long, so I'm jumping between jobs. As I said, I haven't made them spotless. They're clean enough, just need a coat of paint. Let's face it, they are what they are. And this is those lowering blocks that I made. So they're all right. Bit of a paint run there, but I've given those some primer and some paint. I've got two of those, and I'll do the job. So let's make this pin. I'm still waiting on my other U-bolts. They should be in next day or two. And there we have it. Two sleeves made on the bolt, correct sort of spacing. I think I'll just put some strong red Loctite on there to hold those in place, just as long as they're the right distance apart. Just need to find a washer. Got the nut, and then I've just got to cut this bolt off to the right length, and we've made the pin that we need. Easy. Hello, mate. How you going? Just catching a bit of sun, are you? Hey. Got all the wildlife going on. These guys are funny. This place really is like a zoo. Everyone just living in harmony together. Apart from next door's guinea fowl. They like to come and attack ours. These water dragons are pretty cool. What do you guys reckon? Why is there so many feathers everywhere? Well, I've just been enlarging the holes in these plates before I paint them to suit these larger U-bolts. So that's all coming together pretty well. So basically just enlarging those accordingly. Don't have to do it much, it's just a couple of mil, so pretty easy. They're slightly off center in comparison to the original, so time when I'm doing it, this isn't the right U-bolt, but when I'm doing it, I'm got to widen the hole on the inside a bit, because these are, I think, 52 mil and the other ones are 51 or 50 mil. But it is all coming together just fine. So all I've got to do is wait for another set of these, and really I can put that back together. I can put one side back together after I've painted everything. Keep going. Okay, this is the old locating pin. This is the new locating pin. I'm happy with that. It does the job. All it's really doing is holding the spring leaf springs together, and it will locate the rest of the stuff. Hey Sam, what's going on here?
I'm installing some carpet underlay.
Oh, okay. This is that car builder's stuff in that box just there. What is it? Automotive UV stable mold resistant carpet underlay. Okay, so this is one sheet, which is, what is it? 1 by 2 meters. Yep, so, yep, 78 inches by 39 inches. And this is just going in underneath the carpet. Sam's got some spray adhesive, Car Builders spray adhesive. Car Builders an Australian company. Use them, they're good. Spray this stuff down. I've read the instructions. I presume you spray it on the floor and then spray it on the back of the stuff as well. Looking at the can here, Car Builders have got multiple layers. They've got sound deadening stuff and so on. So you could put that, all those various layers underneath this as well. Just going for a simple bit of carpet underlay here underneath the carpet, funnily enough. So at the moment we're just cutting out the holes where the seats bolt, and I like to put those mudguard washers there when we're doing that, and that way you can sort of stretch it and so on. When you're spraying it, we'll leave part of it down, put part of it, glue part of it, and what it'll do, it'll hold everything in place to stop the carpet underlay moving out of place. So we're just sort of cutting it in around the seat belts and all that sort of stuff. It's a reasonably flat floor, but it's got some contours to it. But this stuff, sort of stuff generally is pretty manageable, moldable, but sometimes, like this area here, there's a big lump in the middle. We may need to put some little relief cuts, some pie cuts in there and glue it down. So we'll see, we'll have a play around with that. But we can do part of it and work our way across other areas. I've actually got a tool specifically for putting carpet underlay in. Just got to remember where it is. So this thing here, this is actually a little roller specifically for once the glue's down, then you can roll it and get it right into the contours and so on. And you can use the back of a rounded screwdriver as well, I find, to get into nice tight little places. So we'll go through and do that. Well, that came up well. We ran out of contact adhesive, so we've got to do the front there, but it all form fits nicely. So ready to have the carpet. Sam's using his old carpet because he's just trying to control costs at the moment, but I'm going to try and convince him to put some nice new carpet in it at some stage, because I think it'll make a big difference. He's also got some lovely shiny new scuff things. What are they called? Those things. So these will go on there, hold the carpet down. Nice shiny new ones, and obviously we've got to put the doors back on, and then there's more to continue, but little piece at a time. What is underneath that carpet and underneath that paint is metal that we have replaced, pretty much every square inch of it, because she was rusted. It's looking very well. He's doing a great job. Okay, it's about a week since I last did something on this. And things have changed. I'm actually using the workshop for some other purposes at the moment, which will be in another video. But I've got it lowered down there and it's a bit hard to see for two reasons, because I haven't got a great angle here, but I think you can see. And the other thing is it still hasn't got a motor in it, so it's not sitting down at the front. But what I can tell you is it's now sitting 50 mil lower at the back. I think I've said 40 mil a couple of times. It's actually 50 mil. So I'm going to, because I said I was going to, I'm going to put the wheels on this side so we can all see what they look like, because I've never seen them on the car. So be prepared to be amazed. That's them. So I am going to paint them. So I think they're US racers, Chevyettes. I am going to paint them in here and around in here. And I've got some new wheel nuts, but I haven't yet got any caps for them. So I'll worry about that at a stage. But they've got these enormous 165/70/12 tyres on it. Yes, I said that right, 165/70/12s. Enormous. I know, how are they going to fit under the mudguard? That's the question you're asking. Well, let's have a look. Okay, because this is the workshop that offers service to everyone, we've jumped from working on the Datsun for a second, and we're going to put some hinge pins into Sam's GMC hinges. So we've already done a few of them. I just thought I'd bring you in and show you one. And the reason we're doing this, so just to be clear, the door hinge pins, they go here, door hinges. So two-part hinges with a pin that goes through the middle. The pin or the bushings, the bronze bushings wear, and the hinges ended up moving around like this, so that your door sags. When you open it, it drops down and that sort of thing. Sometimes it's adjustment, but in this case, most of the pins were worn. So the one that we're about to do is actually not the worst out of the four, but just to show you, so Sam, can you just move that through the motion in front of the camera, just here? So hinge rotates like that, obviously, but then in this area here, there's bronze bushings. Just here? Oh, okay, so that one's not even there.
Yeah.
So that hinge will go backwards and forwards. So if I can just grab that for a second. So it's a bit hard to see, but it's rocking on the pin through there. So what happens is when you open the door, then it'll drop. I'm exaggerating this. It'll drop and it throws your door out of alignment. It bangs on the door jamb, it bangs on the scuff panel of the rocker and all that sort of thing. So what we're going to do is take this pin out. So can you pass me the pin? Thank you. So this pin just here, they're a hardened steel pin. So this goes through there like that. And what happens is these bushings, these bronze bushings, they sit, one sits there, one sits there. So the pin goes through here, it locks into this part here, slides through the bushings, spins freely through this area, and just sits in the bottom area. We've got to heat this up. You don't always have to, but we're going to heat it up because it's usually what is the case, because there's splines on this end just here that lock it in just there. So we're going to heat it up with our oxyacetylene torch, bang this through, then we'll put the bushes in, then we'll bang the pin back in, and then we'll have to cut the end off the pin because they're a bit of a standard. I guess there's all different width hinges, so we're just going to cut it off so it's the same length as what's there. So I'm just going to put most of that on time lapse. Okay, so we got that done, got that heated up. Just needed to take a little while to get the gas adjusted, but that's okay. So I've just left the pin punch in there at the moment. So I've taken the pivot pin out. So that's it just there. This one's actually in pretty good condition, to be honest. It's not too bad at all. There's a little bit of rust on it. Don't know what the bushes are like. So what I'm going to do is hold this part over here, this part of the hinge, with some vice grips, like such. And we will take the pin out, and then that side of the hinge may or may not come out because it's actually got a slide that stops the hinge from overextending. So it might just uncomfortably sit there. Yep. So we may need to just take that pin out through the back there, I think. But so this is the second part of the hinge. What we need to do, actually I think I'll just leave it there. What we have is the pin firstly needs to go back in the same way it came out, like that. So that's the top of the hinge. You want the mushroom part of the pin at the top, and that way it's not going to try and fall out through gravity over time. So top of the hinge, so when we turn it around, that mushroom part will be at the top. Those splines, I'm going to sit this upside down, but what will happen, I'm not going to sit in there because it might get stuck, but those splines will lock in to the hole just there, but on that side, and that stops it from rotating. So we're going to replace the brass bushes for here and here, which doesn't look like it's actually got any. Yep, so we're going to replace those, which I don't think there's any in there at all. So we'll put one in there, and this is still stinking hot, obviously. And then we could take it out of the vise and do this, but we just got to leave it in there. So I'm just going to get a second hammer, and Sam and I can bang that in. Okay, so I'm just going to hold the bottom with a hammer. Sam's got to tap the top. And now we're going to play against gravity. You want to give another hit? Yep, that looks good. Play against gravity, and we'll hit the other one up. As I said, if we actually took this thing out of the vise and flipped it around, it'd probably be easier, but who makes it easy? Where's the other bush gone? Righto, so this one, what I might do is just pop it on this pin punch, slide it up like that, and just see if I can get it started that way. Yep, okay. Okay, so they go in easy enough. Now what we're going to do, we are going to flip this upside down in a second so we can get this pin in, but we'll just start it here. So this here, mushroom bit on the bottom, goes up through there like that. I'll be able to get it the majority of the way. It's just the last sort of 6 mil, quarter of an inch. We really want to be able to get a good blast on it. So just got to take this off to show you. So if Sam holds the hinge, I'll undo the vise. Okay. So what we can see here, what you might be able to see, let's get a little bit more focus and light onto the subject. So this area just here, you can see some little spines there. We're going to bang that mushroom bit down, and those spines are going to bind in there. That'll hold the pin in place, and everything will rotate around the pin on here. The brass bushes will rotate around there. So Sam's just going to hold that there. I'm just going to give it a belt. Maybe Sam can hold it and belt it. That'll do. And this is going in a little easier because the metal's still hot. If you are installing interference fit parts like this together, if you heat up the outer part and freeze or cool down the other part, they go together much easier. Sometimes you can almost just push them together, and when the hot cools down and when the cool warms up, they bind together really well, and they are there tight and right. So that hinge pin has been done, and it literally just took as long as what you saw to do. All you need is some hammers, a vise, something to hold it with, and some way of heating it so an oxyacetylene. But if you haven't got an oxy, you can do it, but it does make it much harder. So that feels really good now. As I said, it was pretty good to start off with, but the bushing is the wearing part. There was no bushings in the other one, so I'm surprised it wasn't flopping around more. Anyway, that's done. So we've just got to let it cool down. We'll sandblast it, give it a coat of paint, etc., etc., etc. And Fabio in the background there thinks that we've done a good job.
Yeah, great.
Excellent. Nice work. Oh, and the other thing we're going to do, just with the angle grinder, we're just going to cut that pin off, and we'll cut it to pretty much the same length as what was there before. And that is, if I can pick the other one up. That is about that long. Doesn't really matter. It's got to stick out the bottom about 5 or 6 mil. And we might try and just grind a little bit of a chamfer on it, but the chamfer is really so you don't catch your clothes and stuff like that, but it's more for installing it so that it slides through without grabbing. And that job is done. Hinge pin replacement. Times that by 4, you've done all the doors. Okay, it's looking pretty good so far. So what we have here is these wheel nuts, and you can get tapered wheel nuts which sort of come down on an angle to go into the hole, which is like a typical metal type wheel nut. If I can find one of the old ones here. So these tapered ones here, that part there, it goes into the rim, and the tapered part holds it true, but also helps to center it. So when you've got this, that little tapered part sits into that recess nicely and does it up. So you've got to make sure if you're using metal rims that you never put your wheel nuts on back to front, because they're not going to do the job properly. But the new wheels, sorry Sam, how's your back? The new wheels have this setup here. I actually can't remember the name of it. Always needs a washer. So the washer goes in there, and rather than being tapered, that just drops down into the hole like that, and it's the clamping force. Now these wheels here, you have hub centric and stud centric. So stud centric sounds like a nightclub to me, but anyway. So the hub centric, what that means is that there's a section in the wheel, and the front wheel, actually this is drum on the front, so I don't think it's got it either. Most cars, the front wheel is hub centric, and often the back is as well. And that means that there's a part of the hub or the brake drum or the axle or whatever that comes through that hole and is exactly the same size as it. And what that means is that all of the load of the wheel is being held by the hub, not the wheel nuts. This design is not hub centric, because the brake drum is just flat. So it's actually the wheel nuts, these here, that are holding the wheel to stop it from moving up or down. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you might think that that's what wheel nuts do anyway. But normally, in a lot of cases, it's not. The hub takes all the load. So that's why if you change your wheels, it's important to make sure that if they were hub-centric, that the new wheels are hub-centric, because the wheels, the setup, weren't designed to run with the wheel nuts holding the thing, stopping it from moving up or down. These just stop it from falling off. This design, they stop it from moving up and down and stop it from falling off. That's just what we're working with here. So we're going to do the front. Oh, the back's looking good.
Hold the light still. Just hold it here. Just in here. Can you hold the light just in here? Can you see it? Hold the light in here. Hold it here. Whatever. Alright, cut. Wait, what?
And there we have her, Dory the Datsun, with those beautiful wheels. And Sam's just trying to get in every shot here, I think. So I like them. I would have liked to have pushed her outdoors so that you could see her on the lawn in the sunlight, but the reality is the lawn's boggy and there is no sunlight and it's raining. And as much as I love you, I don't love you that much. So I hope you enjoyed this. There will be more about Datsun. Datsun. That's got to be her new name. About Doris the Datsun in future videos. We will paint, do all that sort of stuff. I think I've said this a couple of times now, but at least I put the wheels on because I said I was going to do that. So if you want to see how she progresses, please jump back and watch. Keep an eye out for Doris the Datsun videos. I'm actually going to be throwing a video up very soon of something that is absolutely nothing to do with anything that you're used to. You'll either like it or won't, but I'm going to post it anyway. So stay tuned for that one. It'll be exciting. Stay safe, pick up an angle grinder, be really safe doing it, and look after one another. Bye.